and welcome to a weekly podcast here on Four Lads and a Dream. My name is Andrew, and joining me to discuss Rangers' 2-1 defeat to Celtic is, first of all, well, two of my very favourite podders. I told you it's been a while since I've done this. First of all, Kenny, how you doing?
Yeah, been better, Andrew, but not bad. Not bad.
Good, good. It is the circumstances, right? And Shona as well. How you doing?
Yeah, similar to Kenny. Not in the best of moods, but we'll get through this, won't we?
Oh, of course, yeah. Like, I should be in a good mood, right? Just come back from a week on the beach, so, I should be refreshed and happy. The problem was I came back on the Friday and then, Saturday happened. We are probably not going to go moment by moment through this game. We have a lot to talk about, and some of it was not, opinions we came to during the course of this game. They're opinions that we've had prior to this, kind of how we've seen the season go. The season effectively is pretty much over, bar one very important game now, 2 weeks from now, which is the Scottish Cup final. But we have some ideas about what's needed now over the summer, I think, in terms of the squad, the approach, the loyalty that's been shown to some players. So let's quickly talk through the events of the game, and then we can just have a kind of general chat about that and everything else as well. Rangers came into this, knowing they had to get the win. 3 points was pretty much all we had to continue this title race, which, as we were speaking before we came on air, is something a little bit unprecedented. It's the closest this season or this league title has gone since 2011. This is the latest it's taken before it's effectively been decided, and officially it even hasn't had that yet. Not that I suspect we've got much of a shout anymore, but we were in a position where the league was still within our grasp, even if it would have taken a couple of really good results to do that. Unfortunately, a number of similar mistakes happened during the course of the match, which caused us to not win. Probably 10 minutes were key to deciding this. 35 minutes, O'Reilly, who has been trying the same goal for about 10 minutes prior to that, cuts inside after losing his marker, Lundstrom, and scores the goal. We then see our heads, I think, completely go. I'd left the room to get a drink because I was annoyed at the situation. By the time I came back, I was watching replays of John Lundstrom kicking the ball into our own net. So obviously not ideal. 2 minutes later, we get a goal back through Cyril Dessers. So Team Shona just keeps on winning. And then unfortunately, the fastest sprint I saw from John Lundstrom all game as he storms over the pitch to wipe out Alistair Johnson. I believe it's initially a yellow card that gets awarded and then goes to VAR, is confirmed as a red, and he takes the walk. Second half, I think, comes and goes. We were never really realistically going to be in a position to try and get the goal. Celtic did fail to kill the game off. I think that's probably reflective of that they are not that much better than us. But the crucial thing is they didn't allow their heads to go down. Even getting a penalty and failing to score it, they don't kind of let that beat them. And I mean, let's be honest, they're at home with all of their fans in attendance. It's never, ever going to be the easiest roast to hoe, even with 11 men, even with a better squad of players. But despite trying a couple of half chances, we never really threaten. Game finishes 2-1, and the league is a point away from going to the other side of the city. So, Kenny, I'll come to you first, mate. We talked about this off air just before we came on. In terms of the team selection, I think we're all in a number of different Rangers group chats. Pretty universally, I think the reaction was poor to the lineup that's selected. What were the key kind of issues that you saw with that lineup before a ball's even kicked?
Midfield right away, lack of mobility, lack of legs, lack of energy in there. Bar Diamandi, I think Lawrence he's not the fastest, put it that way.
Yep.
We know what Lundstrom is. We could look at the left side, Borna Barisic starting when Yilmaz is on the bench. Personally, we don't know how fit Yilmaz is, but I personally would be starting Yilmaz there without a shadow of a doubt. You've seen what he can bring when he come on. Silva starting as well, was a little bit disappointed in that. Other than that, I would have simply for me, I would have put Cantwell on the right hand side and put Sterling in where Tom Lawrence was. That's probably what I would have done, and started Yilmaz instead of Barisic. We've seen what Borna does over there. Didn't expect to see it again. Got to be honest, not ever, not in 2024. And that midfield failed a month ago. Only start, and I've seen a few people say this actually, just very quickly, that the midfield actually got the 3-3 draw. No, it didn't. It was when Lawrence come off and Cantwell come on at Ibrox that midfield started to click in the 3-3 game.
And the wonder goal from Ray Matondo as well. I mean,
exactly. But the point being that midfield didn't work for 60 minutes, 70 minutes at Ibrox. So expecting it to go over there when you're going to have even less of the ball just kind of doesn't make any sense to me. I've got to be honest, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I think that's all completely fair, Kenny. Shona, I mean, from your perspective, we have talked in the past, I think, about how the manager has done good things for us. You put us back into contention in the league, has managed to, I think at one point we said it was getting blood from a stone. But I think there are failures with how he set up this team in terms of this match. I don't know if I'm quite at the stage where I want the manager gone as well. But frankly, there are a number of players I'd be more than happy to see out the door. What was your take on the lineup just before we started the game?
Yeah, kind of similar thoughts to Kenny. I thought obviously the midfield, the lack of legs in there, the energy, the robustness of having like physical players. We all know that the battle is won in midfield, especially against them. We've seen that already 4 times this season. And I think for me, I think it's disappointing when you look at the last, is it 3 Old Firm games under Clement, we've gone 2-0 behind. Last time we used exactly the same midfield and it wasn't working. And we're still trying to get something to work that clearly doesn't work. Do we have to start questioning the manager? I think you have to. I think I don't want Clement to get sacked. I think it'll be the players that gets the manager sacked. I think the same happened under Gio, the same happened under Beale. Seems to be that when a manager comes in, they get a bounce with these players, and then all of a sudden, there seems to be a massive drop off in mentality. I think Callum McGregor came out and said a few good words about how the resistance of them and obviously how he manages these players. I don't really see that from Tavernier, and I think that's the biggest problem. I don't really see that. How do I explain it? So when Callum McGregor understands, when these players that come into the football club, they understand the standards of what it means to be a Celtic player. And I don't think Tavernier clearly gets through to these new guys or anybody that's on that pitch exactly the standards about being a Rangers player. And I think that's the biggest problem for me. I think a lot of these guys will talk about it, have obviously run the run, and it's time for them to go. But I think overall, I think that the team selection for me, there is questions that you have to ask the manager about. I know that the managers came out in the press conference and said that he would not have changed it. I do not understand why you wouldn't have changed it. I think even after the first minute, you could see exactly what their game plan was. James Forrest, like Kenny said, was going past Borna Barisic and John Lundstrom with ease. One touch, one turn, and he was right in and around the box. And then you had the likes of Matt O'Reilly and Callum McGregor having shots from outside the box. And I think at that moment in time, you have to then turn around. The manager needs to turn around and say to himself, right, okay, what can we do to stop this? Why do we not put Tom Lawrence out in the right and bring Sterling into midfield? It's quite simple, like Kenny says. You can see it, we can see it as fans. So I think there has to be questions that we need to ask of Phil Clement. Do I want Phil Clement to leave? Absolutely not. But I think there's definitely some questions that we need to obviously talk about, especially when I said before we came on the pod about this, we need to get off to a good start. Now, I don't know about you, but I think in the last 5 or 6 games, I've heard exactly the same quote. I've heard exactly the same thing from the manager, and we haven't got off to the best start. So, what is it we've got to do to change this? Is it a case of ripping up the team and bringing in the youth players for the next game? We might not even have that option with the amount of injuries that we've got. Or is it a case of, which I've been saying for a long time, play players in the right positions? And I know that we've got the likes of injuries and whatnot, and obviously Kenny mentioned Ridvan. If Ridvan's fit enough to start on the bench, he's fit enough for 60 minutes, 70 minutes. And that's when the game's won and lost within that first 50, 60, 70 minutes, from between the first minute to the 60, 70th minute. So, look, I think there is definitely questions that we need to look at, but the team for me was just really disappointing.
I think that's absolutely fair. What we said before we told, on screen here that these players will get managers the sack because they've done it before, right? And it is that thing. We are not blessed with an abundance of fit players at the moment. We have 11, I think, players out injured for the game tomorrow against Dundee. It's poor, and it's been talked about. We can't use the injuries as an excuse, but they are absolutely a factor. It's undeniable. And one of the promising things, at least, that Clement said in today's press conference was that the injury department is his biggest regret, that he hasn't done more to address that earlier on. I'm calling it the injury department. It's the medical department, but it just feels like it's the place where the injuries are at the moment. Let's talk about a couple of key players then, or at least players that are key and we hope aren't going forward, at least from my perspective. John Lundstrom. Let's pull the plaster off. Honestly, probably like the worst 10 minutes I've seen from a Rangers player in an old firm in a good long while. And there's unfortunately a big body of evidence prior to the last game that we can pick out from. But near single-handedly, I think John Lundstrom ruins any chance we have of getting anything from this game. Loses O'Reilly for the goal, scores the own goal, and then gets himself sent off just at the point where Cyril Dessers has given us a faint bit of hope. Shona, I'll stick with you because I want to talk a little bit about the Dessers goal. I think he does well to get it, and it's good balling from Barisic, good cutback from Sterling. But all that work is almost immediately undone.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a really good goal. I actually think that Silva did actually really well in the build-up. I thought he played quite well against Johnston in the game. He probably got slight pass marks for me with Silva. I think he did okay, but he did well to get the ball down to Barisic, and then I think it was the header across goal from Sterling, and then obviously the goal from Dessers. So I'm hoping now a lot of fans will get off of Dessers back. Dessers had a really tough game on his own up there, I have to admit. I think he was trying to press at times. I think he was trying to put the pressure on. But there was just the problem I found in the first half, especially, was the amount of space, again, which I've said this in previous pods, between the midfield and attack and then midfield and defence. The defence needs to be pushing up far more to allow that press to happen. If you don't have your defence or your midfield moving up, there's no point in a press. Absolutely no point. And we know that Liam Scales is really poor on the ball. We know that Joe Hart isn't great on the ball either. And we had one guy that was only really doing the press, and that was Dessers. It just seemed totally not right from obviously the first minute when we obviously made that mistake. I think that just set the tone for the game. But yeah, I think the goal overall, I think when we got into that moment in time, I thought to myself, right, here we go. We've got a bit of a lifeline after having such a poor start. And then for John Lundstrom to do what he did, I'm sure I'll let Kenny go on to it in a minute because I know he'll want to have his little rant about John Lundstrom. But for me, John Lundstrom is not only blaming the referee at one point, he's putting his hands up in the air, and it seems to me it's as if a rush of blood where he's obviously going in for that tackle. It seems to be a accumulation of things that's happened within that game that's obviously he's gone in for that tackle. Now, if you look at that tackle in real time, I actually don't think it was a red card, but when you definitely slow it down with VAR, it's 100%. It's a red card. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And he is basically cost us that game, knowing how important it was. Was that tackle necessary? Absolutely not. Don't know where
it's the wrong half of the pitch.
Exactly. Alistair Johnston's going absolutely nowhere. There's nobody even about John Lundstrom. So even if he does win the ball, there's not even a counter attack or anything for him to pass it off to. So yeah, John Lundstrom has let the team down massively. I expect him now not to remain at Rangers. Obviously going into next season, I hope not. I know that Clement really rates him, and he's obviously apologised for the situation. But for me, when you cost us something in such a huge game, and I've said this before, if we won that game, I am 100% certain that we would have gone on to win the league. Because I think their two games against Kilmarnock and St Mirren, they're not going to concede many goals. We've got a free run against Dundee, and no doubt we had a free run against Hearts, where we've taken, what is it, 3-0 and 5-0 off Hearts in the last two games. So we could easily take 5 goals off of them. And I think if you had the goal difference down to 1 or 2, I think we could have easily went on to win that league. So basically, John Lundstrom's not only cost us the 3 points, but he's cost us the league.
I can't agree. Sorry, I can't disagree with any of that, Shona. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Kenny, I'm sure you've got a fairly measured kind of opinion.
I'm always measured, Andrew.
Yeah.
Look, I tend to agree with a lot of what Shona said there. It wasn't Saturday that's lost us the league. It's the Ross County games, it's the Dundee games, it's the not performing in 4 games against them. We've taken 1 point out of 12. They've taken 10. There's only 6 points in it. That's where the problems lie. Shona's talking about Lundstrom and the challenge, and just before that you were talking about the press. He's the farthest guy forward.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you he's the one that's trying to press. Now I don't know if that's just out of sheer frustration because he just lost a goal and he's looking at it, giving it, where the hell is everybody up here? There's meant to be 3 a striker and 2 wide players, and there's nobody there. You've just said it yourself, Shona. There's nobody round about him. So where are they when Lundstrom's decided he's going to charge 30 yards and career into the guy? So look, Lundstrom shouldn't play for us again. That's my personal opinion. And it's not that I was going to swear that it's not. He's like, it's like salt and vinegar or something like that. He's either this or he's that, right? There's sometimes I see John Lundstrom and he plays out of skin, and he's driving forward and he's leading a team, and then you see performances like he's chucked in the last 6 weeks or so that have been nothing short of absolutely abject. They've been awful. Every single game he's played, he's been terrible. And that's another thing that kind of gets me about Clement and his team selection. Now, he's never going to drop John Lundstrom here for Saturday's game. I understand that. But the simple fact is that up until about 6 or 7 weeks ago, when we have just dropped off a cliff, this guy was rotating all the time. Mm-hmm. And now in the last 6 or 7 weeks, he is not rotating anybody at all.
And I mean, I think to speak to that, Kenny, we saw what happened when he was continuously rotating. We lose those, we managed to get 1 point out of 6.
You've seen Raskin's performance in the first half against Motherwell. It was dreadful.
Yeah.
You see Barisic at Kilmarnock, and it was dreadful. So I understand that he's maybe went on it, but look, we've talked about mentality. I've written about the mentality of this team, and at one point after I had written something after the Aberdeen game up at Pittodrie when we drew 1 each, and he actually said that he had read something about the players' mentality and how it was weak, and he didn't see that in here. He sees it now. It's quite obvious that he's seen the frailties that this squad have in their heads, because when there's no pressure, this squad will go and. I mean, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if they turn up tomorrow night and go and beat Dundee 5 or 6-0. That's the kind of mentality they have. All the pressure's
off
on.
now. Yeah.
So don't be surprised if they turn up and give you a performance tomorrow.
It's the same in Europe, Kenny. Same in Europe.
There's no pressure in Europe. That's exactly the point. Anything that gets a bonus. There is no pressure in Europe. They're not expected to win things. They're not expected to get to quarters or semi-finals. A successful campaign for us over the last few years now, the final accepted, has been the last 16. It's an incredibly successful thing to get to. It's tough to get there. So all the pressure's off. They could go and play those 6 games in that group stage, and enjoy themselves, and play with a little bit of freedom. And it's when they really have to get results that's where the problems start to lie.
Yeah.
And as I say, Lundstrom for me on Saturday kind of epitomised everything that's wrong with this squad at this minute in time. Just a guy that's been there just a little bit too long for his own good as well as the club's. For my, you know, is my take on it. But it's, and I'm not trying to be critical of him, because, you know, getting sent off in that game, mad stuff happens in games of football, and
Sure.
particularly in games like that. You do score daft own goals, you do get sent off, you do not track runners. All these things can happen. But it's that encapsulation, that 7 or 8 minutes, whatever it was, that it all happened to him all at the one time, kind of sums up where we are as a team and as a club at the minute. That we just self-inflict and implode for no apparent reason. And I said to you guys off here, 5 wins in the last 12 games when the pressure's on tells you all you need to know about this team.
Yeah.
It really does.
I think that's right, Kenny. Listen, we could pick the bones out of this game for a good long while yet, but we got to look forward, because I think we're all kind of the view that the season is pretty much done at this point. We know that there is still the potential for silverware. I think a lot of that's going to come down to which version of Rangers decides to turn up. It's a pressure game against Celtic at Handon. We haven't actually had one of those for a little while. In terms of a final, at least. It will be interesting to see how we turn up and see if we can salvage anything. But we've spoken about Clement has performed a small miracle, even getting us into contention. But we're at the stage now where we have to start looking forward to next season. He is going to have a transfer window. From what he said in the press conference, the view is that it will be a substantial one. He's called it a rebuild in that press conference. I don't think that's something he's idly speaking about, and I think it's warranted and needed. We know that there has to be some turnover. We know there are already players who are definitely going out of the door. We know that there will be players who will be asked to go out of the door as well. So we know there has to be a rebuild, but before we get to that, we still have 3 more games to play. And the first one is tomorrow, or today, depending on when folk are watching, listening to this, against Dundee. So, Shona, I mean, we saw from the press conference today the injury list. What's your starting 11 even look like at this point?
Well, I think the defence one is something that we're going to have to look at, isn't it? Whether Borna Barisic might have to play at centre back. Whether, I don't think Balogun's going to be fit, but
Nope.
I think the best thing to do is probably bring in Yefeko. He is a big, solid centre half. He's doing quite well for the B team. I think you've not got anything to lose now anyway.
Sure.
I know it's a difficult situation to fling these boys in right at the deep end, where tomorrow, I'm not going to lie, I don't think Ibrox is going to be the best of atmospheres either. It's going to be quite toxic. I hope not. I think the fans have got to get behind the manager. They've got to get behind. They can't blame the board at this moment in time. I know, obviously, we've got to start just blaming the players. I think the players have just not been good enough for us this season, especially the senior ones, the ones that we expected to step up. So I would hope that there's not as much booing tomorrow, though I'm not very hopeful that that's not going to happen. So I think for me, I think you've got to look at Yefeko coming in. Do I think the manager's going to do that? Probably not. So I think he'll probably will go with somebody like Borna Barisic at centre back and put Ridvan in at left back. That's the way I'm looking at it, with obviously the likes of John Stewart and Tavernier. But I would quite like to see a few changes tomorrow.
Six is out injured as well, right?
Stewart
I'm making
is.
that up.
Yeah,
I believe so.
He's out.
Stewart's out injured as well.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know about that one.
And Sterling.
and Sterling. So,
Yeah.
oh my, right, okay. All right, that's right.
I can't wait to tell Stevie that you've not even listening to his reports from the press conferences. Shocking behaviour.
Oh, because
We'll
Stuart
get
picked up
Kenny
the
his
hamstring.
tickets to the press
Stuart
office
brought
and
up,
sooner rather than later.
sorry, I meant not Stuart, sorry, Ben Davis. Sorry. I got that,
Right.
got that wrong. Edit that one out. Edit that one out. No, I'm
No,
joking.
it's all
No,
staying in.
look
It's
at,
all
no,
staying in,
like,
Shona.
people
Can't be
make
having that.
mistakes, and I'm making that mistake. No, sorry, I meant Ben Davis. Aye, that's right. Stuart picked up the hamstring injury, didn't he? So then you're having two left-sided players playing there, which doesn't suit.
Hey, I mean, we've played just two right-sided players for the majority of the season, and that did okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why not?
Yeah, so look, it's going to be a tough one, but I would quite like to see a few changes. I think, look, our best attacking midfielder this season has been Todd Cantwell, so I would expect Todd Cantwell to come back in. I don't know if there's been a relationship breakdown with Clement. I don't know what's going on there as to why he never got a sniff at the game at the weekend, but I would like to see Todd come back in. I think Dessers as well up top. You've got to remain with your top goal scorer at this moment in time. I know people have their opinions on Dessers, but I thought he did really, really well in a press conference. He doesn't hide on or off the pitch, and I think that's really, really good credit towards Dessers. And yeah, I would quite like to see maybe the likes of McCausland even just come in, because I know McCausland isn't probably a fan's favourite, but what he gives you is a natural right winger. So, and I keep saying this, we need to be playing players in their natural positions. So same with Silva. Silva's not a left winger for me. Silva's a striker. So I think a lot of questions obviously would be like, I would like to see is from the manager, is that he keeps on saying that we keep on getting off to a good start. That's the most important thing. So I want us to see us tomorrow definitely get off to a good start and see a reaction from these players. No doubt, I'm pretty much sure we will probably see a reaction from these players, because otherwise the fans will just get right on their back. So, but for me, I think the defence is probably the one area of concern for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kenny, I mean, we're working with the squad we've got, right? But how, if you're the manager, what are you doing
Tomorrow?
Oh yeah. Are you playing Kenny? Like, if you're
honestly,
the manager at this point?
You're asking me this. Oh, I don't know. I'd play kids. Genuinely, he said something about it in the press conference that he expected to play quite a number of the B team. So, look, anybody that's got any kind of knock, any kind of niggle, won't be playing in the next couple of games. They just won't.
Yep.
He's going to get them fit for the cup final. So if the likes of Sterling and whoever who could probably play, they're just not going to play. He's going to give them a rest. Particularly big Dujon Sterling, because he's been playing that often in that many different areas that he deserves a break. My concern now is more about not the short term future now. Listen, the league's gone. That's not happening, right? So we have to look, try and win this cup final, as you say. But I'm now looking to the summer. I've got to be honest with you. Tomorrow's game is fills me with fear. Actually,
Sure.
Not in the sense that I'm concerned about the result or anything like that. Just as Shona says, I don't think it's going to be a nice place to be, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's a number of folk don't go and make their statement that way, instead of coming out and, as what Shona was saying, and instead of making the place toxic, they might just turn and say, "No, do you know what? Sorry, I'm not going."
Tuesday night as well. I mean, never exactly
Man
the best
City
time
on the telly, you know. Good football to watch, you know. And I don't mean to be, you know, facetious, but you know, people are done with this team. They are. Me included. I've sat here. We discussed this before. You know, we come on, Andrew, but we had this very same discussion at this point last year on another pod. And look, I don't really know where we go from here. Shona said that, you know, we don't want to go blaming the board, and I totally agree. But the board have got a lot to answer for here. They really have.
Buck stops us in at the end of the day. Like, ultimately,
of course it does. They're the ones that are making it. Ultimately, somebody signs off on these decisions, Andrew. And you know, if you're going to sign off on it. You're going to carry the can if it doesn't go right.
Yep.
That's just the
But
way
you get
it
the
is.
praise when it's going well. You're going to get the blame when it doesn't.
We're not doing well, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not, sugarcoat this. This has been a catastrophic end to our season, our league campaign. It's been absolutely horrendous. As I say, from the Motherwell game on, we have just dropped off the face of the earth. It's been frighteningly bad how we haven't performed in a single game for any length of time. So tomorrow, I'm going to be honest, I'm not fussed. He can play whoever he likes. I don't want to sound miserable and downbeat about it. I just don't. I'm past the point of caring. I just want this team gone.
That's the worst thing, right?
I want a number of those players away from our football club now.
Yeah,
and that might sound really harsh, Andrew, but I don't mean it to be. I'm just done with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair, Kenny. I mean, even before this game and even before the drop-off, there was still this acknowledgement that there needed to be a big change over this summer because too many players come in, too many players had hung around too long, too many players just aren't contributing, whether through injury or just not being good enough. We already knew that there was going to be a rebuild that was necessary. I mean, the past few weeks have confirmed it more than anything else, unfortunately. I mean, there's still stuff to play for. Pride, I suppose, for some of these players. Try and go out on a high. The best way of doing that would be to win a trophy. But we still have these 2 games to go through. Obviously, with the game falling on Tuesday, I don't think there'll be a podcast again until after the weekend. So next Monday should be the next time that you see and hear from us. I would encourage folk to go and read the blog that Stevie put up yesterday. It speaks a lot about this team, this manager, how things have gone this season, where we hope that they are going to go forward. I think it's a good and honest appraisal of where we find ourselves in this situation right now. So it's already got a good number of views on the site, but I would highly encourage folk who haven't read it to check it out. Links are in the description below, because I think it reflects how a lot of us were feeling in the immediate aftermath of this game, and frankly how we are mostly still feeling as well after this game. Listen, folks, Shona, Kenny, as ever, pleasure to talk to you guys, even given the slightly miserable subject matter, but it's always good to talk Rangers with you. We can only hope that it's been maybe not enjoyable, cathartic maybe is the better word, at least getting some of this stuff off our chest, but we are not going anywhere. 4 lads are dedicated. We are going to keep working because we always do, right? Maybe the players could take a lesson from us, right? But we are where we are. We will continue to work away. Both of you, Shona, first, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Andrew. And you can edit my John Suter muck up earlier on. No, I'm just joking. Everyone makes errors, doesn't it? But yeah, no, guys, thanks very much. It was a good pod. And I do recommend everyone to go and obviously look at the Stevie Clifford blog that he did. It was very, very good, have to admit. So credit to Stevie. Well done. He's done a really, really good job in that.
No, for sure. Kenny, as always, mate, we've been here before, but we are going to keep plugging away for sure. We might not care at this moment, but come the start of next season, I'm sure we'll be right there.
Yeah, you're just my shoulder to cry on, aren't you, Andrew? Look,
these are therapy sessions, Kenny. Like, I'm just chatting to you guys to feel better.
Agree with the 2 of you about Stevie's blog. It's nail on head. He wrote it the night of the game, full of emotion, very honest, very frank, and brilliant. And we're thinking of him. We just want to say that we're all thinking of him at this minute in time. And don't forget the Pie of the Week nominations, Andrew. About you, just
well, that's got to be me for my John Suter comment, isn't
it? Listen, there are a number of candidates, I think, this month that we could pick out. Me having the temerity to take a week off just before the biggest game of the season. So I don't know. There's plenty of candidates, but we encourage you to get those in. As ever, description links are in the show notes below, and we always encourage you to check out Pie Sports because you can get 12.5% off pies, and who doesn't want that, right? So check them out as well. We send a lot of love towards them.
And just about in there, sorry, at the end there. Obviously Karen that won the pies, loved them, absolutely loved them. So look, guys, just get your comments in. You've got an opportunity to win some free pies, and they are supposedly amazing. Like the curry one and the kebab one is supposedly fantastic. So unfortunately, I never managed to get a wee nibble, but I'm sure Kenny's can come in and tell us all that he's had his the pies, haven't you, Kenny?
And so is Andrew. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're genuinely fantastic. Yeah.
Listen, macaroni and cheese Scotch pies don't exist down here, okay? We feel blessed and privileged to have that delicacy come down south. And I wouldn't have had that without Pie Sports. So
You know,
yeah,
I cringe every time you say that, Andrew. The only pie on earth that I don't like is the mac and cheese one. I just don't like it. I don't like them. They make me cringe.
Look, my wife's an American. She knows her mac and cheese, and she backs them. So come on. I mean, what higher endorsement do you need than that? Folks, as ever, both my co-hosts and me, we thank everyone who's tuning in, listening. To all the Celtic fans tuning in, thank you. You're helping the pod grow as well, so we appreciate that. But to everyone who stuck with us through the rest of the season, we thank you for your loyalty, your viewership as well, even if you're listening, because we still like to do that for you guys as well. It's been a pleasure. As I said, we'll talk to you Monday. Until then, bye for now. Four Lads Bite-Sized Podcast is proud to be sponsored by Rhino Express and Clydeview Joinery, certified fire door installer and maintainer. Also in association with Rangers Pools, Zenith Coins and Alexander Campbell Interiors. Please share and follow the pod to help us grow. We hope you enjoyed the show.